I come from the New Orleans area, so I'm used to saying who dat.
Yeah.
But, you know.
We'll take that too. We'll
Oh,
take
yeah.
that too.
So I'm Amanda Smithson. I'm the Director of Recruitment and Enrollment here at ACC, and I am over admissions, advising, recruiting, and career services. And I'll let my co-presenters introduce themselves.
Double checking I'm not muted because that's like a classic me move. So my name is Michael Goodman. I'm one of the Pathways advisors here at ACC. Specifically, I'm part of the Allied Health Pathway Advising team. It's me and one other advisor. And I'm also the only advisor for all the manufacturing, construction, and logistics programs we offer here.
Hello, I'm Misty Abraham, and I am the Alvin Community College recruiter.
So we're glad that you guys are here with us today. We want to just talk a little bit about like the student of 2025 and who they are. And I got to make the thing go. Okay, there we go. So kind of, what are they looking like now? What are some of the differences we're seeing now as opposed to previous cohorts of students? What are they bringing with them to campus that we're having to also unpack from their little backpacks? And then also, how do we as recruiters, as college, admissions and advising professionals reach them? And then how you guys can use some of these things in your own practice with our students. So we kind of did a little bit of a deep dive with the National Student Clearinghouse. If you're unfamiliar with the clearinghouse, every college feeds that monster its data, and then that monster gets to digest it, and then we're able to extract really great information from them. And something that I think is really interesting is that this cohort of students from the fall 2024, they are, a lot younger. And I think that that's not really surprising because of the growth in dual enrollment. So we have, an 8.7% growth in students under 17. And so if you're teaching out at a high school, you're probably kind of thinking, yep, I'm feeling it. We're also seeing a huge growth in adult learners. So that's anybody over the age of 24. We consider them to be adult learners. I keep wanting to hit like the arrow buttons, but apparently I can't do that. So what are they studying? Surprisingly, they're coming back for certificates. 28% growth in the trade programs. So highest ones that we're seeing are construction, mechanic, and repair. So they want to be auto mechanics, precision production programs, health, always, everybody wants to be a nurse, and then the social sciences. This, again, not a surprising stat. They need help paying for college. So enrollment increases are happening mostly in schools that are Pell funding institutions, which is pretty much all community colleges. The Trellis Foundation, if you've never heard of them, they are they're a wing of a company, and they do studies of students' financial welfare. And we participated in it a couple of years ago, and then they do one every year that's just kind of a broad of what the American college student looks like. As you can see, they have a lot of schools that participate. They really focus on community college students. And they just really provide a snapshot of students and their food security, their financial security, and also their mental and physical well-being. 53% of our students are worried about paying their bills. I think that we can all say that yesterday we probably all shared that same thought because it was the day before payday and we were really just hoping that we had enough gas to get us to 2 a.m. this morning when our paychecks hit the bank. 61% of them are also concerned that they aren't going to be able to pay for school. So that kind of helps us to see the growth in schools that are offering Pell grants to them. So 45% of students are reporting food insecurity, 42% are facing housing insecurity, and 14% are also seeing homelessness, which is a little bit of an upsetting trend.
So for this part, one of the things we run into from our side quite often is the student needing developmental courses. So this study focused specifically on the trends in developmental education. Around 2/3 of students at community college, so 66% of our students have taken some kind of developmental education, compared to 40% of university students. Now, the chart below shows you of the students that took those developmental classes, the completion within 6 years of a degree. The community college, that was 40%. It goes down a little bit across the board between community colleges and universities.
Okay. And so looking at this, if you guys kind of look over, this would be our average student that we see on our campus right now. We have our lovely Isabella. I love that name. She is female, Hispanic, about 16, coming on to 17 years of age, part-time. This would be a student at one of our Turner High School. These are her top 5 courses in dual enrollment. So as you can see, this is basically getting her core classes ahead, and this is wonderful for Isabella, and I can tell you her family as well. And then this is our other average student that we have on probably on our campus. This is Jessica, and she is 24. She is coming onto our campus part-time. This is something as far as affording college. She would be eligible for part of the Pell Grant. And then, of course, the top 5 student majors are health science, general studies, business administration, nursing, and process technology. And then looking over, this kind of gives you an idea of what the age are for our students. As you can see, our highest number is our dual enrollment students, which is great. And then you can see where then we do have the students that may not have been able to do dual enrollment that are coming to us, and they're looking at 18 to 21. And then you see the 22 to 25, but then we kind of bump back up when we see the students at the age range of 26 to 35. And then you can see the other scales as well.
So as far as basic needs for our students here at ACC, in the academic year 23-24, 73% of our students were worried about having enough money while they were a student. And I can tell you anecdotally, I'm also an advisor for the education pathway, and I have many students that have had to cut back on work hours so that they can go to class. And that has had a financial impact on their families. They're having to take advantage of food banks and, assistance programs just to kind of keep their heads above water while they are going to school and trying to earn their degrees. 61% again are kind of seeing that basic needs insecurity. So food, housing, toiletry. I'm sure that you've heard many people say that some of our students are one flat tire away from dropping out. And you can see that that is a very serious situation for a lot of our students.
And I think kind of coming on with what Amanda is saying, we're also seeing where students are not driving like they used to drive. We've had a conversation about that. You know, as parents, I can even tell you for my daughter, she didn't drive until she was a senior in high school, simply because of the cost and insurance. And we live in I live in Harris County, which is the highest car insurance rates that are out the window, very, very expensive. But we have a lot of students that even if they're doing dual enrollment or the young age gap, they're not driving to campus. They don't have an extra car, or if they do have a vehicle in their family, they're actually sharing vehicles. So they may be using one of their parents' vehicle if they are able to drive. But just the cost on that. And another thing with our students that we're finding, I had a student the other day that was a first generation student. The mom was having to take off work because wanted to bring the student up here because she had no idea of really how to get her students started with the college experience. So she had to actually take off work, and we accommodated that for her to come and take a tour and sit down with her. But we do have a lot of students that are still relying on their family with
And
this experience.
We've also found a lot of them, they don't even want to get a driver's license.
Correct.
If you are of the age group that we're in, you probably couldn't wait to get your driver's license when you were 16 so that you start cruising around. They are totally happy with having their mom drive them, or they are extremely comfortable taking rideshare apps. So I think that's really interesting, this kind of shift in the autonomy that we had when we were young with having a car, and this new generation's kind of lack of that need.
Well, and I think kind of going into that generational thing as well. I mean, for us, we would go to a fast food place or go to the movies or go, we were going places. They have everything at their fingertip. They can DoorDash food, they can watch their Netflix, they can listen to their music, in the comforts of their home. So they don't really have a lot of that push. And a lot of them don't want to hang out with other people. So they may not be, quick to go and meet people. They'll just FaceTime them.
They are missing out on the simple pleasure of going to the Sam Goody at the mall, which is just tragic for these poor children. It's just so sad for them.
A lot of this information is going to corroborate the spaces where we see the students now. They're not coming to campus. So spoiler alert, a lot of our stuff is moving to accommodate that, to try and, find a place to be convenient or be like of use to the students.
Yeah.
Yes, I had a student last fall who came in and they needed to build a schedule, and they were with their mother, and it was the end of the registration cycle. So I cobbled together a full-time schedule for the student, and he never said a single word. And then the mom said, okay, so is your friend going to be able to get you to school those days? Because he doesn't drive and he was relying on a friend to take him. And then he said, oh no, she can only take me Thursday afternoons. Well, we don't offer classes on Thursday afternoons. So it was a little frustrating for me because I had to kind of start over and try to find more online options for him, try to find something that would accommodate him and his friend so that he could get to class.
Again, looking at what they bring with them to campus, parents, a study conducted by the EAB in 2022 found that 48% of students consider their parents as top 5 sources of college selection information. And so as you can look through, specific college websites, parents and where they went to college, coming to campus visits, again, having the parents, a lot of what is great is, something that we do have with our students, especially around this area, is our Discovery Day. So a lot of parents that can't come with their students with campus visit, or don't even know that is something that they should do. This kind of gives an idea of what students might be looking for. And really what I would say, and I think Amanda and Michael could kind of agree with this, or all of you guys could probably, a lot of the kids are not doing their researches themselves. They're listening to where maybe their friends have gone or where their friends are going. But parents are usually the ones, if they know what to look for their children, they're kind of doing more of the research than the student themselves.
And I think that Misty, Michael, and I have all had the special experience of having a conversation with a person who never says a single word. And that is the student, because the parent is standing right there. And it's just kind of practice when you are doing, our work, that you address the student. You want to make them the center of the conversation. And they don't care. So you can look straight at a student and they will say absolutely nothing to you, and the parent will do the talking all the time. And it's interesting because it's always been kind of frustrating for us in the student service side to have to do that, to have that conversation with the parent, because for years and years we've been trying to kind of push the parent out of the process, help the student to kind of come into their own. But we're finding that we've lost that battle. So we have to continue to evolve and bring the parent into the conversation. We have to let them be part of it. And we have to kind of accept that the parents kind of driving the bus right now. And we hope that when we get them into the classroom, we get them into our advising office, then we can kind of start doing that work of creating autonomy for the student.
I will say, as one of those students myself, because my parent or my mother graduated from here, my brother and sister came from here, so I was definitely one of those students that had I went to ACC because my parents went here, and that's just how it was going to be. Um, while it is frustrating, and we're definitely seeing kind of a return to the parents doing a lot of the talking, it is a good learning experience for those students. What we're doing does work most of the time. The students will come out of their shell. It just takes longer, it seems, now than it used to.
And it's still extremely gratifying when you see the student kind of clap back at their parent a little bit.
Never gets old.
When, you know, the mother is still in that, oh, my poor baby mode. And the kid is kind of like, okay, mom, that's enough. Or they are leaving your office and the student looks back at you and goes, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry for my mother. So, so it's happening. It's just taking them a little bit longer to get there.
And I think with that too, you know, even in the elementary and the high schools, they've tried to involve the parents so much, which is a good thing. It's not completely horrible, but at the same time, we as parents, we do get bombarded with a lot of information. And because a lot of times the student themselves is getting the information, but they're not really paying attention. So it typically goes on the parents of reminding them of a lot of things of like, oh, well, you have this coming up, or oh, you have this event. The students kind of, I think at this point haven't really taken on a lot of that responsibility. And I know when I go into the high schools, you know, there's bookshelves right when you enter, right? And I see band equipment, I see sports equipment, I see lunches, I see backpacks of kids that have forgotten all of that stuff. And the parents, you know, they're bringing it up there. And I know there was a controversy a while back ago at one school that they wouldn't allow the parents to bring anything up. So if your kid forgot it, they forgot it, and then they would be without. And I'm sure that kind of got turned into a different direction. But every day that I go to any of these high schools or even the junior highs, I see a whole just shelf right there right when you walk in. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of stuff. But again, that, you know, that parent is also kind of, taking up for that. And the, you know, again, with the food thing, that's for sure. But
Yes.
so there's a lot of information that parents are getting on these apps now. I know for my son that's in school, I have constant reminders all day long from an app for their school about a book fair or, you know, a field trip or things like that. So the parents are being involved in those skills. So I think it does spill over when they come to us.
And what you see on our screen, Michael's colleague, Marisol Montalvo, she's the other half of the healthcare pathway team, our pathway advising team. She has a daughter that is at UH main campus, and her son, I think, is a senior in high school this year. And she sent this to me. This is what she has on her phone. So Band is it's the app that Alvin High School uses to communicate with parents. School Cafe is also another one. I can't remember exactly what it does, but then the UH Go is an app for parents that of students at U of H. So universities and colleges have just kind of learned to embrace it. There's a lot of programs and software and things like that for you to set up, you know, communications to parents, because they're not going away. This is just kind of how it's going to be from now on. And we have to figure out how we're going to work with them as part of our team to support that student.
And then this comes to the other information that our lovely parents receive. And this is where it becomes very tricky because as social media continues to be available to all of us in our life, whether you choose to be on it or not, this is something that I see quite a bit, that whether it's a talk of Alvin or a parents group on some of these social media, this basically, if any of you haven't seen this, this was a post recently where it says, my child goes to Alvin Community College. When registering this spring, they said all her basic classes were only offered as 8-week courses, one of which is math. Math is already a work heavy course, and math is not easy for my child. So this made it even harder. Why would a community college do this? ACC has a large number of students who are going there while working full time. 8-week courses are hard for the strongest of students. To have that as the only option is unacceptable. Is anyone else having the same issue? And then, of course, as you can see, there was 56 comments, but that was light because I think it grew from there. This is also where parents, I can tell you, are getting a lot of information. And of course, is most of this correct? Sure. Is some of it where people start putting their own comments, their own opinions, and then things get a little crazy? Absolutely. So I will tell you, a lot of parents take what they see on the internet as facts a lot of times because they just feel like, oh, the information's there. Whether it's right information, wrong information, they're reading it, and somehow, some way, then our lovely Welcome Center, Amanda, Michael, they get all the other calls from the parents.
And just so you know that the majority of the comments were kind of like blasting this mom for being so nosy in her kids' college education. They told her to back off. So we kind of took that as a win for us, you know. Misty and I had a meeting last year with all of the high school counselors for our area, and they said one of their biggest frustrations was parents and parent groups, because these parent groups it's through social media, and they kind of are projecting this image that every kid goes to a premier university, and that's the only thing you should be doing is trying to get your kid into a premier university, which we all know is not the norm. So they battle that every day because parents are just like us, right? We see perfection on social media and we feel like we have to try to attain that. So it's very interesting that we as an institution, as a kind of industry, have to kind of get ahead of it to make sure that we're addressing the parents' needs. And then Leanne pointed out that a lot of universities are now doing parent orientations as well, which I think is super awesome.
So kind of piggybacking on what Amanda said about students going to premier universities, that may be what's presented on social media, but the actual facts of the matter are 4 out of 5 high school students will have completed one career or technical education course while they were in high school. So like 80% of those students have taken at least some kind of career training in high school. It ranges. You can see IT, HR, those are the higher ones, and that makes sense. Those are growing fields. And then we've got a few other things. We've got like the logistics is a growing field, but that's towards the bottom. So you can see quite a few different options, quite a few different courses the students are taking. Of those students, of the 4 out of 5, of the 80%, 40% or 47% of those students will major in a CTE field, different from the one they take in high school. So that tells us a couple of different things. One, it's showing them all the different options they have. And it's showing them that they can finish things while in high school. They don't necessarily have to go to these universities. It's showing them multiple options. It's kind of empowering them to make their own choices and to kind of control their own narratives. So for Pearland High School, 6,500 high school students took a CTE class. Last year, around 1,500 students earned an industry-based certification. So it's like dental assistant, they're kind of those career certifications that let students start entry-level positions. And so they're starting this in high school. And so they're doing the non-traditional educational routes that we may consider, like instead of going to university, instead of going to these 4 years, quite a significant portion of our student body is doing preparatory work in high school and kind of feeding two birds with one stone.
And it's really helpful because it gives the student a chance to really see that industry. Because as we say here in recruitment and enrollment, everybody wants to be a nurse. So if they were able to do a CNA certification in high school, they kind of got a firsthand look at what's really going to be coming their way as a nurse. It is not like, television. It's kind of gross and people are cranky and families are mad. So they're kind of getting a real view of that industry and it can help guide them in the future. Where there's growth for us is to kind of acknowledge these programs and continue to build programs here that we can further what they have. So a good example is we have the CNA to LVN program that's coming about. So that's a good opportunity for these students who have to go to work after high school with their CNA. They can go work for a little while. They can come back and move up in their career.
We're also trying to capitalize on those with prior learning assessments in the high schools through articulation agreements. One specifically that comes to mind is welding. One of the high schools, it's J.B. Hensler, I think,
Correct.
has students finish some welding courses. And then when they transfer here, they get credit for 2 of the welding courses automatically. So they hit the ground running. Those students are already in the shops. They already have learned these techniques. And so that also cuts down on some of the time spent instructing them. So they kind of have these reciprocities established, and we're trying to grow that out to different programs as well, but especially in the CTE fields. Now, another option for students in the high schools is a college prep class or a college bridge. We have 300 or over 350,000 students in Texas took one of these courses. Really, it's like to prepare them for college level English, college level math, because so many of our students come in at the developmental level. This is kind of heading that off and preparing them in the high schools to make that jump from high school level to college level. So we've been collecting data on the success rate of these students for the college prep courses. You can see here English has a pretty decent success rate. Passing students is about 66%. So 2/3 of the students that come in with that the college bridge or the college prep, they're successful in that college level course.
Everybody prepare themselves.
Yeah, for the math. So there is a little bit of a skew in the math. You can see college algebra is pretty heavy with the Fs. It's about 60%, 64%. But we do see some success in business math and quantitative reasoning. Those usually do line up with some of our technical programs. And then we see that statistics also has a pretty heavy failure rate of over 75%. Now, what this tells us is that the college prep is working, but maybe not necessarily for certain things. So there's room for some calibration, I think. There's room for some discussion about what's being taught in those courses, what's working, what's not. So this is really kind of like fledgling data collection.
So we had a question about this being offered to TDCJ students. The way that these classes work replace either their junior or their senior level high school math or English. So the students, for example, at Pearland High School can either take dual enrollment English, AP English, or college bridge English. So I don't know if it could be part of a TDCJ program because they receive high school credit for it, not necessarily college credit. I think it's my turn again, right?
Yeah,
Nope.
I had to check
Yes.
I had to check my list.
Yeah. So technology, I think that we all are just rolling our eyes right now because, oh God, yes. So they have it. They have the tech. They have smartwatches and they have the latest iPhone and they have computers and they have tablets. Now, do those computers have chargers? That is the question that nobody really knows the answer to because somehow they were on the charger all night, but they're completely dead, right? Like, I know you feel me. So 85% of Americans have a smartphone and 77% of Americans have the internet at home. So that I kind of want to stop. 77% is a high number, but that still means that there's like 23% of people who don't. And I will tell you, as somebody who lives in Alvin and my parents live out in the country, internet is not something that is the best. They have the internet at their house, but it's extremely slow. And when they get home at 5 o'clock and everybody is on the internet, it moves even slower. So our area, we're one of the ones that's kind of in that kind of sketchy area of internet success. And I think a lot of us saw that during COVID. We see it a lot here with TSI testing when students do it online. They're constantly getting kicked out of the test because their internet goes down. 15% of Americans only have a smartphone, which just is baffling to the mind that they live their entire lives on their phones. And 3 in 10 of those are under 30. So that is part of our group of students. And I think, again, everybody's eyes are just going to roll completely out of their heads because we've all run into that student who tries to take a test on their phone. For us, they try to complete the Applied Texas application on their phone. And we're just like, bruh, come on. You're killing me. You're killing me, man. So they have, oh yeah, Leanne tries to write an essay on their phone. I am the worst texter on the planet. Like Misty and Michael will tell you, you have to have the Rosetta Stone to read some of my texts because I fat finger those things like crazy. I think I texted Misty last night and instead of a K, I put a W and I was like, she'll figure it out.
That's just an
So
Amanda
trying
thing.
to type an essay, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine doing that. So continuing with, they have all the tech, but they don't actually know how to use it, right? So there's a little survey that goes out and it found that students are performing below, the average on their abilities to use technology in everyday life, right? Investigating, creating, communicating to be effective members of our society. And they were doing really well in 2018, and that is just dropping as we continue to go. I've seen in the Welcome Center students that don't know how to make capital letters. In fact, they don't know that they're called capital letters. They call them big letters. We have students who don't know how to print. Don't ask them what a PDF is because that they just can't handle it. So some of these things that we do on a daily basis, just because we are computer users, they don't have the skills for yet. And I'm sure you're seeing this in the classroom. I helped a student the other day who was failing an English class, not because he wasn't doing the work, because he didn't know how to upload it correctly. He was doing it in Google Docs, but he couldn't figure out how to make his Google Doc into a Word doc. And it was like, bro, you just hit the button, and he couldn't figure it out. And of course, his laptop was dead. So that's kind of a challenge that we're all seeing. They call to the Welcome Center and they need help with something, and we can't help them because they don't have the skills, the basic tech skills in order to do the basic things we need.
And I think on that, I also had to tell our Sherry and Career Services that even some of our student workers didn't know how to fill out an Excel spreadsheet or even, set one up. A lot of times with these students, they're not learning this in high school anymore. They're not learning the computer skills. But if they do not have a computer at home or their family are not computer users, they're not getting that. They're just not.
Mm-hmm. They don't have, again, the joys of the Commodore 64 and the Oregon Trail that we had. And, their lives are just so empty and you kind of feel sad for them. So, social media, they're on it, right? They're on YouTube, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook. Surprisingly, Michael and I kind of agreed, we don't love this report because it put TikTok at like 30% use with the 18 to 29s. Misty and I think it's safe to say that we're TikTok addicts. If we have a good day, we give ourselves 1 hour to watch TikTok. If we have a bad day, we give ourselves 2 hours to watch TikTok. And then every single day we come in and we're like, oh my God, did you see that TikTok? And I've read this thing about a book on a TikTok and stuff like that. So I think TikTok probably next year is going to be a little bit higher. Facebook, I think is kind of also skewed because if they're on Facebook, it's just to talk to their grandmas. I'm not really even on Facebook, and I'm pretty much the most senior citizen lady you'll ever meet.
And when I'm going to the high schools, this is what the kids are doing at lunchtime. They're making their TikToks. They're doing the dances. They're doing all the things. And it's quite enjoyable because I just laugh at that, just
Mhm.
all of these students, whether they're in a group or by themselves, they'll literally set up their phones and they'll just start doing their dance or talk through their TikTok. So it is very interesting.
Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that kind of in this tech thing. They're, they have it, they want to use it. We see it in what they're taking, right? So they're taking online classes, they're taking hybrid classes. They really don't want to take a face-to-face class. They just don't want to do it, but they get in there and they don't know how to work the technology that's required. But there is some good stuff, right? So these are some things that my team, I asked them to give me some feedback. Like, what are some good things, right? So they are able to harness AI. Like, they know how to do a ChatGPT search that's effective. They are very entrepreneurial. They are setting up their own Etsy shops. I learned about something yesterday called Redbubble, which is a thing where you can make t-shirts and sell them. They're giving each other glimpses like through their TikToks of what their days are like. So students can see what it really is like to go to college. They're adaptable because they're always going after the new thing. First it was Snapchat and now it's TikTok. I think there's like another one out there. I'm not there yet. It's going to take me another 10 to 15 years to be as cool as the average trends. So there are things that are good. These are soft skills. We just have to figure out how to help them harness this and turn it into something that will make them successful.
And then as far as reaching out to these students, what we're trying to do is meeting traditional learners on their turf. We're going through building a lot of strong relationships with the high school counselors because they do have a lot of access to these students. It's amazing to see with these schools how many counselors are on these campuses. A lot of them, I'm sure you guys are familiar, they break them up by alphabetical or sometimes even kind of on some of their pathways as well. So going with those high school counselors, creating a team. A lot of these high schools, I'm going in and helping these counselors with these students doing Apply Texas, of course, hoping and trying to catch a lot of students that we can to kind of bring them to come to Alvin Community College. We're also helping with admissions, express. So some of the students that have already decided that, yes, community college, yes, coming to Alvin is what they want to do. We're setting up to where we're making it simple for these students to have everything completed. So that come summertime, they're getting ready to come to us in the fall. And then, of course, Discovery Day, which is on March 28th. That is one of our biggest recruiting, where we're bringing all the high schools onto our campus for the day so they can see the campus. They can see all the different programs. And that's something that we get a lot of students that didn't realize all that Alvin had. And so it kind of brings them into an idea of, oh, wait, hold on, this will be better for me, for my family, because of the expense and, us not really having the money to go away.
And also, again, they don't have cars, so we have to come to them.
Yes. Yes. And then obviously really just showing all of these students just kind of what Alvin is. We can cut down the cost of coming here, getting the core classes, and then we have such great relationships with the universities. So making that university transfer is very seamless for these students. And then again, we have a lot of the programs that are the career and technical training. So some of these students that may not be ready to really sit down and do their core classes, that they can take these continuation CTE courses, or get out there with welding, and jump into a good career. And letting the students know that, coming here, a lot of things change in families, and kind of going back to a lot of the parent groups and things like that. parents talk about how, oh, my kid's going off to Rice or my kid's going to UT. And, a lot of parents feel that pressure that, oh, my kid's not good enough because they're not going to a four-year university. And things happen to these families, whether it's a sickness or, unfortunately, some deaths that have happened in people's families, that coming to us, we will still get you to where your goals will be.
I had a student in August of last year came in with his mother. That kid was hot. He was mad. Okay. And he was just not having it. He was not going to say hi to me. He had his arms crossed. He was not here for it. And I talked to the mom. Had been accepted to the UH main campus, was planning to go to UH, and he received zero financial aid. So the family could not afford to send him there. So he was with us because they couldn't afford it. So he was going to come to ACC and do 2 years. And we talked to him, kind of helped him to understand, like, look, you're taking the same class as everybody else. You're going to be able to go there in 2 years. We're going to help you save some money. He felt a little bit better, but we find that we're your best plan B. We see that a lot, especially in the summer when these kids that thought they were going off to universities, that's not going to pan out for you.
Well, and then even with the students that do go, they go their first semester and they failed all their classes because their parents weren't there to remind them to go to class every day. Or so we do see when we have these conversations with these students, even looking at some of the things that they think it's going to happen for them, it just doesn't, and we can be there for them. Something else that we really, because we do realize and recognize how much the parents really need to be involved in some of these conversations that the students are having, is we do want to engage with these parents. We do want them to know what we can do for their child. But even them, even a lot of times when we're talking to these students, once the parents kind of realize, wow, like, I wish I had this opportunity to come to college, or I didn't go to college, when they start realizing everything that we have to offer, that opens more conversations for even them coming back and becoming a student of ours.
It's not uncommon to hear. You have a parent in your office that you're talking to, and at the end of the conversation, you kind of get the feeling that you just convinced them to enroll at the same time. That happens all the time.
And kind of going into the next thing about with adult learners, we do have a lot of parents, but not just parents, even when we're doing community events, that recognize, oh, wow, I can kind of learn a different career and be successful because I've been at my job that I don't like anymore, or it's not really fulfilling or sustaining me. They don't realize that we do have programs that they can do in 2 years and come out making a really good salary to help them. We really want to allow students to know that it doesn't matter what age. I went to an elementary school recently, and one of the things one of the kids asked me was, what do you like best about your job? And I said, well, I like the fact that I can let people know it doesn't matter how old you are, you can come back to school. So,
and it's really important with these adults. We say that they're elusive because they're really hard to find, right? High school kids, like they're in a pen. We can easily get to them. We have easy access to them. It's no big deal. Fish in a barrel, right? But adult learners, they're working and they're doing their things, and they aren't, necessarily thinking about this as the next step in their lives. So when we find them, it's such a great opportunity. And Michael can also tell you this, that they come into our offices and they're just terrified, right?
yes.
Because they think everyone is going to be 18 and really good at computers and really smart. And they took math last year, and I haven't taken math in 15 years. And just for them to walk in the front door to make it back to our office is a huge deal for them. And so it's really important to celebrate those little wins and to really focus on some of the stuff that they're bringing into the classroom that they learned just through their lives, right? Like how to solve problems, how to manage time, those kinds of things that we get frustrated with our younger learners. A lot of times these adult learners already have those skills. So we want to be able to celebrate that and let them know that they're already coming in ahead.
What we're doing as far as going out there with the community, is letting the students know that are adult learners, that we have options for them. That is one of the things, kind of going back, not everybody can do online. There's a lot of people who think they can do online, and it just doesn't really work out. They do need that classroom environment, which is a positive. But letting them know we have a lot of different plans for them, to where, yes, some of this 8-week courses would work for them because they want to get in and they want to get out. They want this to happen. But also helping them set realistic goals. And then, of course, a lot of the things that we do provide here on campus, kind of going back further from the beginning, one of the great things that I love about the campus is that with our food bank and with our resource center, I think it's been great because nobody's embarrassed that I have seen. There's just always groups of people going over there. It doesn't matter, everybody's going over there and taking advantage of that. So, and then just even having our counseling here for a lot of these families and students, because one of the big things with, I think, adult learners is they are scared. They do have a lot more stressors on themselves because they are also having to pay their bills, and they're trying to go back to school to kind of reinvent a new career for themselves. So we do have a lot of assistance. And of course, our learning lab is great. That's one thing that I always tell students, especially when it comes back to the math. Everybody's always afraid of math, and I think writing essays. So I'm always like, we have that. We have that support for you.
So one of the other ways we're making ourselves available for our students is through not around the clock, but like during business hours kind of live chat, where students can sign in to a basic user interface and ask questions of different departments. So there's like one for financial aid, there's one for admissions, there's one for advising. During peak registration this past year, June 1st to August 20th, we had 730 individual instances of people using the chat was that just for advising, Amanda?
That was advising and admissions.
Okay, so across two different departments, 730 different chats. Of those chats, the average was about 12 to 20 minutes. That constitutes 146 hours during peak registration spent talking to these students in these virtual chats. Is it cumbersome sometimes? Certainly. But we've got a lot of interaction there, and we're able to help students, meeting them where they were, getting them the things they needed, connecting them with resources to kind of encourage that, getting started. And sometimes it just takes that one chat message to get a student in. Piggybacking on that, we have a lot of traffic with virtual advising, returning students that may be familiar with how things work, but just, kind of need to shake the rust off. That's where we see a lot of those. But for the first time in college, students, especially those students with the parents, they come in, they want to see the person, they want to meet their person, establish that face-to-face relationship kind of thing.
Sorry.
No, that's pretty much like I said,
sorry.
it's tricky and can get frustrating, especially during those peak times, but it is useful.
It's safe to say that chat's our least favorite part of our jobs. We absolutely hate the chat, because a lot of times, like, the students drop in and out of the chat because their connections aren't good. And we're also seeing students and answering emails. So it's just one more thing, but it is a valuable tool. And so we've kind of just sucked it up, and we just do it.
Sometimes I think you're a robot. That's a lot
They
of fun.
do. They also think we're a chat bot. And so that's super fun too. There's so much kind of out there for the student, whether traditional or non-traditional, that they're getting pop-up ads, and then it's like you say pizza and your Instagram is full of pizza. So we found that we've had to kind of revert to some old school engagement just to make sure our messages are getting across. So we do a paper admissions letter to students. They get it at their house. So they can't say they lost the email. We're very targeted and timely when we do make phone calls to students or send them emails. We don't send a lot. We know that they can opt out really easily. So we send stuff that is, you get everything you need. So what you see is an example of an admissions letter a student gets. The gray box, I know it's really small. The gray box at the bottom tells them all of their admissions holes they have to clear. So we're giving them all the information at once so that we're not hitting them over and over and over again. And another thing that we found, I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to talk really fast. So Michael and a couple of other advisors and I are piloting a new early alert program. And we were reaching out to students that were failing classes. And then I thought, you know what? Let's reach out to students who are passing, who are making A's. And we did it. And the four of us were like, oh my God, let's never stop, because it made us feel so good, because the students were just so happy. So don't forget to send them things about good stuff. You can see these are some of the responses that we got from those emails. And it also, when a student, you're not coming at them with, why are you failing your class? What's going on? They're more likely to communicate with us. So, this is one of the emails I sent to a student. Hey, you're doing a great job. She responded and said, thanks so much. I do have a question about advising. So we don't always have to come at them when it's something bad or it's something urgent. Just giving them a little high five, it really helps to open up and create that relationship. So again, my team, these are just some kind of words of wisdom that they have for working with them. Just making sure that we are meeting all of our students where they are. And I'm happy to share this with everybody. This was my favorite, be prepared for short answers and responses, because you ask a question and they say, yes, yes. Okay, thanks. So we have a few minutes for questions if anybody has anything. These are our babies. The alive one is Misty's son, Talon. He is the hardest working man at ACC. He loves to go to recruiting events with Misty, and he will tell anybody about the benefits of attending Alvin Community College. And then the one in the hat is my dog, Daisy. She graduated from puppy training school on her looks alone. And then the other is Maple, who is Michael's corgi. And what you can't really see is Michael behind the sign, because we forced him to lay down and hold her leash because we didn't want him in the picture. We just wanted her because she's so cute.
They were very forceful with their commands.
Yeah, we're like, we can still see you.
Get out of the picture. We don't
Yeah.
want you.
So if there's any questions, please feel free. Comments, thoughts, anything to add? Yes, Mr. John Brundrett, who was my student years and years ago. I will always tell people, I'm like, I remember John when he was a student.
A whole decade ago now.
Oh God, don't. Why did you do that? Why'd you put a number on
you
it?
asked for it.
I just I wanted to say two things. First, a thank you guys for talking about these things. Honestly, when y'all are talking about the affordability, I mean, yeah, I went to ACC, right, as Amanda said. It's like I thought, I was kind of knowledgeable about, the struggles, right? But the statistics are pretty sobering. And I mean, I see it all the time with students and on the esports team and stuff. So thank you for spending the time to pull together this data and actually talk about that, because it's important that obviously we look that in the face. My question, though, is if we're looking at a period of time where a lot of students are not really engaging as much and they're relying upon their parents, obviously we expect that in the dual enrollment environment. But the fact that y'all are seeing that on campus with the adult students is actually kind of surprising to me. And so I'm wondering, obviously you roll with the punches, right? And y'all are doing a great job and you've talked to that, and I think that's wonderful. But how can we maybe build agency with these students, right? If we're seeing them, they walk in the door, can you even build agency with the student? You know what I mean? In that moment, I mean, how do you do that?
Piece by piece.
Totally.
I mean, sometimes it takes, the parent's going to be involved in the conversation, period, end of story. There's no way around that. But I definitely see as a trend, at least with my students, the parent comes in for the first meeting, the second, maybe the third, but by the fourth meeting, the student's in there by themselves. They're asking questions. It's frustrating to us because we see the same thing every time and we do it over and over and over again. But we also have to contextualize the fact that for that student, we're the only meeting. So they've only met with a person 4 times and they're on their own. So we see the same patterns, but from the students, you flip the you flip the perspective from the student side, they're learning pretty quick, at least from my experience.
I have my office set up so that I have one guest chair in front of my desk and one guest chair behind me. And I put the student in the chair in front of me and the parent in the chair behind me so I can't actually see them. The parent can still see over my shoulder so they can see my screen to see what I'm showing their student, but I've kind of made it physically so that they're not part of the conversation. And then I mean, everybody kind of knows me. I'm very outspoken. So sometimes I'll look at the student and I'll say, stop looking at her. You talk to me. You tell me, what do you want to do? So sometimes you just kind of you have to address it and you kind of have to force it a little bit.
And I think for myself, when I'm out at the high schools or I'm at college fairs and the parents come up to the table with their student, kind of the same thing, the parents talking, telling me what the student wants to do, I kind of address the student. And then I kind of give the student a little bit of homework. And the fact of like, if we had a situation the other day where a parent was telling me that her daughter wanted to go be a pharmacist and was asking me a bunch of questions about a pharmacist. And so I looked at the student and I said, do you go to the pharmacy? Have you gone to Walgreens? Have you gone to HEB? Do you know anybody who's a pharmacist? Why don't you go to HEB, go talk to one of the ask if you can ask questions. I kind of give that power back to the student of like, if this is something you really think you want to do as a career, go find these people. Kind of the same thing with real estate. I'm like, do you know a real estate agent? Do you know somebody, that you can go and talk with to kind of give them that homework as far as, making it something that they're doing.
I think we have time for one more question. If anybody has a question or comment or thought, if they just want to tell us how cute our dogs are.
They're adorable.
And Talon too, obviously, but well, thank you. If you would like this presentation, just shoot me a quick email. I'm happy to send it over to you. And if you ever have questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to any of us. Everybody kind of has a pathways advisor assigned to their pathway, and that is your subject matter expert, and they're always available to work with you. Misty is the second hardest person working at ACC after Talon. So she is kind of knows what's happening at the high schools. She can always give you information on, what's happening out there, what we can be looking for. And Michael is, he's our data man. He loves to, I'm like, Michael, I need you to go in and look at the success rates of the underwater basket weaving class. And I need to know for the last 5 years, are they transferring in any extra credits? And he's like, I'm on it, boss. So he's great at sharing data with you that you may have questions about.
Well, thank y'all very much for presenting. Thank everybody for coming, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank y'all.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.